The bus factor reality check. You're killing it, crushing your niche. Your calendar's packed. Now, here's the gut punch. If you get hit by a bus today, does your income stop tomorrow? Because for too many of us, that's the grim reality. We build empires on our charisma, our hustle. We see the Instagram reels, the smiling entrepreneur, the lavish travel, but I'm going to pull back the curtain. I've seen them up close. The frantic texts, the canceled family dinners, the exhaustion etched into their faces. High revenue, sure. Zero exit value. You don't own a business. You own a high-stress, all-consuming job. This isn't just about office politics or side hustles anymore. Inflation magnifies this trap. Here's the core conflict we're ripping apart today. Are you a time teller or a clock builder? Most of you, you're brilliant time tellers. You are the clock. But here's what you need to do. By the end of this deep dive, we'll convert that irreplaceable charisma of yours into an asset that generates income while you sleep. If this hits home for you, drop a like. But to build that asset, you have to stop doing the one thing that got you successful in the first place.
In this video, we will go through and review this book, okay?
Your product is not your product. You're busting your ass. You poured every late night, every early morning into your thing. This product, this service, this brilliant idea you've birthed. You just know it's going to explode. The market needs this. Welcome to Audiobook Bites, where we distill the best books into actionable insights. But nothing beats the original. Grab the book if you want the full deep dive. Here's the gut punch, though. Your product is not your product. I know, right? Sounds like some kind of Zen riddle. But hear me out. For too long, we've been fed this fairy tale. The brilliant visionary with the groundbreaking idea conquers the market. We fetishize the aha moment. We chase that lightning bolt. But that's a dangerous delusion. A great product, all by itself, doesn't build a great company. It just builds a great product. Think about it. How many times have you seen an incredible piece of tech, a genius service, just sputter and die? Because the founder was the bottleneck, responding to Slacks at 2 a.m., buried under emails, constantly thinking, only I know how to do this right. That's not a visionary. That's a hostage. If this hits home for you, drop a like. Here's the kicker. You need to shift your identity. Stop being the visionary, the brilliant mind with the singular idea. Start becoming the architect. This means embracing the clock builder mindset. Most people spend 80% of their energy on telling time. They focus on the output, the product itself, the immediate win. They're constantly reacting, solving today's crisis. The clock builder, they spend 80% of their energy building the system that tells time. They're designing the gears, the cogs, the pendulum. They're obsessed with repeatable processes, clear instructions, delegation frameworks. Not because they don't care about the product, but because they understand the product is just one manifestation of a superior system. Think about it this way. We've all seen the charismatic leader, the rock star CEO, who could sell ice to an Eskimo, who could inspire armies. They build incredible products, gather massive buzz. But when they leave or burn out from the sheer weight of being the single point of truth, the whole damn thing implodes. Suddenly, office politics intensify, morale crumbles, inflation hits, and without that core operational robustness, they're dead in the water. Now imagine the boring leader, the systems thinker. They might not give the most rousing speeches. Their product launches might not be as flashy, but they build robust, anti-fragile businesses. They've externalized knowledge. They've built processes that run whether they're there or not. They scale. They endure. They don't just react to inflation. They have systems to adapt. One builds a personal cult. The other builds an empire. Which one do you want to be? Look, it's not sexy to talk about standard operating procedures. It feels like bureaucracy. but it's the bedrock. Your competitive advantage isn't just what you make, but how you make it, how you deliver it, how you support it, how you scale it. These are all systems. So, here's your actionable step right now. Identify one process, one task, one piece of knowledge that you currently possess and perform that only you know how to do and that needs to be externalized immediately. Seriously, write it down. Maybe it's how you onboard a new client. Maybe it's how you troubleshoot a specific bug. Maybe it's how you manage your side hustle's social media. Whatever it is, create a step-by-step guide for it. A video, a checklist. The goal? So someone else, or even an automated process, could do it tomorrow without asking you a single question. This isn't about laziness, it's about liberation. Once you stop obsessing over the product, you have to make a mental switch that 99% of your competitors are physically incapable of making. The mental switch that doubles revenue. You've been there, staring down two bad options, convinced you have to choose: raise prices and risk losing customers, or cut quality and trash your reputation. It's a gut punch, right? Inflation, supply chain snarls, maybe a competitor just slashed their rates. Suddenly, you're in the ring, forced to pick your poison. This isn't just some abstract business theory. Think about Sarah. She runs a thriving e-commerce shop selling handcrafted jewelry. Her raw material costs for sterling silver just spiked 15%. Her instinct? Raise her prices across the board. Her stomach drops. She knows she'll bleed customers to the mass market brands. Or she could switch to a cheaper alloy, something that might tarnish faster, but keep her price point. Either way, she feels trapped, lose revenue, or lose her brand's soul. This is the tyranny of the or. It's the insidious belief that you must choose between two seemingly opposing forces: low cost or high quality, speed or precision, innovation or stability. Your competitors live here. They choose, they compromise, and they leave money on the table. Now, the author of this book, they pull a real mind-bender here. They don't just suggest you try to do both, they insist you demand both. It's called the genius of the and framework. Here's the kicker: stop settling for trade-offs. The genius of the and says you don't pick low cost or high quality. You pursue low cost and high quality. You don't choose conservative finance or high-risk R&D. You do conservative finance and high-risk R&D. Honestly, when I first read this, my skeptical filter went into overdrive. It sounded like fluffy motivational poster talk. Just have it all, right? But the distinction is crucial. It's not about aiming for both, it's about making both non-negotiable requirements from the outset. Think of it as a paradox you must solve. When you demand opposites, you force your team and yourself to invent new solutions instead of defaulting to the easy, mediocre choice. If Sarah from our jewelry shop goes to her team and says, "Okay, we either raise prices or use cheaper materials," they'll bring her options for how to do one or the other. It's a foregone conclusion. But what if she said, "Our costs are up, we will not raise prices, and we will not compromise on material quality. Find a way to maintain our margin"? That demand completely shifts the game. Her team, facing that seemingly impossible constraint, is forced to get creative. Maybe they negotiate a bulk discount with a new, equally reputable supplier. Maybe they re-engineer their production process to reduce waste. Perhaps they discover a new marketing channel that doubles their conversion rate, offsetting the material cost increase. Or they find a way to offer a premium add-on that justifies a slight price bump for that specific product without altering the core offering. The point is, when you eliminate the or, you unleash problem solving. You eradicate the easy out. You compel true innovation. Here's how this mindset doesn't just improve things, it compounds your margins. If you choose low cost, you might cut costs by 5%, but you risk alienating customers. If you choose high quality, you might boost customer loyalty, but at a higher operational cost. These are linear gains, often with hidden losses. But what happens when you cut waste by 5% and simultaneously improve your product quality, leading to 10% more word-of-mouth referrals and a 20% higher customer lifetime value? That's not additive, it's multiplicative. It creates a virtuous cycle. You're not just moving a single needle, you're igniting multiple levers that reinforce each other, building a more resilient, more profitable business. If that feeling resonates, you know what to do. This framework shatters the limitations you thought you faced. It rewires your decision-making process. It moves you from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, but an actionable one. You can have stability and risk. But there is one specific type of goal you need to set. Otherwise, your team will just default to being lazy. Why realistic goals keep you poor. You're exhausted chasing that next 5% raise, aren't you? That next incremental promotion. You're working harder, clocking longer hours, just to stay even with inflation, with the rising cost of living. This isn't ambition, it's the middle-class trap. It's the constant treadmill of realistic goals that promise growth but deliver only burnout. Honestly, this book's take here initially made my eyes roll, but stick with me because it shatters a fundamental assumption about how you plan your future, your side hustle, your career. We've been taught to set achievable goals. Be realistic, they whisper. And what does that get you? A slightly faster horse, maybe. A shinier office politics medal. Not actual transformation. Here's the kicker. Those realistic growth targets, like aiming for a 10% increase in sales or a 5% bump in your income, they don't force innovation. They just force more. More emails, more meetings, more grinding on the same old hamster wheel. You just pedal faster. You just burn out quicker. But what if you torpedoed that whole idea? What if you declared a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal? We're talking a 10x, 100x, 1000% goal, not 10% growth, 1000%. Now your brain is probably screaming, impossible, delusional. Good, that's exactly the point. That's what this book calls the gulp factor. If your goal doesn't make you swallow hard, if it doesn't send a jolt of genuine fear through you, it's not a BHAG. It's just another damn to-do list. It's too comfortable, too safe. It won't ignite the kind of thinking that unlocks new possibilities. If this hits home for you, drop a like. Here's the mechanism. When you target a paltry 10% increase, you instinctively reach for the existing toolkit. You optimize, you tweak, you hustle harder. You think, how do I do more of what I'm already doing? Result? Exhaustion, not evolution. You remain stuck in the same business model, the same career trajectory, just pushing harder against the same limitations. But 1000% goal? That explodes your current operating model. It forces you to throw out the entire playbook. You can't just work harder, you can't just send more emails. You're compelled to ask fundamentally different questions. What needs to be true for this to even be remotely possible? What new technology? What revolutionary partnership? What completely different product or service? It demands a total reinvention. Think about Henry Ford. His realistic goal would have been to build a faster, more comfortable horse and buggy, maybe even a mass-produced horse and buggy. That's a 10% improvement. But his BHAG wasn't a better horse. It was the democratization of the automobile. He didn't just iterate on the existing model of personal transport, he reimagined it entirely. He didn't ask, how do I make the best carriage? He asked, how do I put an automobile in every garage? That required entirely new production methods, new supply chains, new pricing. It wasn't an incremental change, it was a societal upheaval. That's the power of the gulp factor. That's the strategic innovation a BHAG demands. However, massive goals usually destroy companies. The only reason a BHAG works is if you have the safety net we are about to discuss. Surviving the AI apocalypse. You're staring down an AI-fueled future, right? Maybe you're sweating the tech layoffs, or wondering if your side hustle, your whole career, becomes obsolete overnight. The fear is real. It's a gut punch. This section of the book, Surviving the AI Apocalypse, doesn't pull any punches either. It slams you with a stark choice: evolve or evaporate. Here's the brutal truth this book forces you to confront. Remember Kodak? They invented the digital camera. Let that sink in. The very technology that eventually demolished their empire, they built it. But then they clung to film like it was the last life raft on a sinking ship. Why? They refused to slaughter their sacred cows. Their core became their products, their processes, their entire legacy of celluloid. And they imploded. It wasn't just a misstep. It was an organizational suicide, driven by a fear of change. So how do you avoid becoming the next Kodak? How do you pivot your career, your business, your skill set without losing your identity, your brand soul? This book demands you define your core ideology. This isn't some fluffy mission statement gathering dust on a wall. It's the 2 to 3 non-negotiable values that never change, ever. For you, maybe it's unwavering client trust in your consulting gig, or craftsmanship above all else in your small batch baking business, or solving complex problems with elegant solutions if you're a coder feeling the AI heat. These are the anchors. These are the things you'd rather shut down than compromise. The author insists this clarity is your bulletproof vest in the AI onslaught. Now, here's the kicker, and this is where it gets controversial, where most people choke. The slaughter rule. If it's not part of those 2 to 3 core values, it must be changeable. Products, strategies, your job description, your entire org chart, your client roster, your comfort zone, all of it. Disposable. This isn't a suggestion. This book frames it as an existential imperative. The current climate of rising inflation, the constant threat of AI replacing tasks, office politics eating your soul, these are all signals. If a product isn't serving your core, axe it. If a strategy isn't driving your core, abandon it. If your skill set, once king, is now easily automated, you don't ditch your entire self. You shed the skill and re-engineer your approach, all while clinging to that foundational core. The author makes a compelling case that the companies and individuals who thrive amidst these tech pivots aren't just adapting, they're ruthlessly pruning everything that isn't essential. They understand that their brand soul, your soul, isn't tied to the how, but the why. It's about being able to shed an old platform, embrace a new technology, even reinvent your entire business model, all while those 2 to 3 core values remain your unshakable North Star. Honestly, the author's tone here is a bit severe, almost like a drill sergeant, but the nugget of truth shines through. You can't be emotionally attached to the vehicles that deliver your value, only to the value itself. It's the difference between a blacksmith who loves his hammer and one who loves the act of forging. The hammer can change, but the forging, that's the art. That's the soul. If this whole sacred cow idea is making your stomach flip, if you're wondering what your core values even are amidst all the chaos, drop a like or share this episode. You're definitely not alone in that thought. The fear is real, but the strategy is actionable. This all sounds great, but I looked at the list of companies this book recommends, and frankly, it's a disaster. Why this book might bankrupt you. You're commuting, trying to juggle work, family, maybe a side hustle, and you're wondering, can a decades-old business book really offer a roadmap, or is it a booby trap? Because here's the cold truth. Some of the best advice can actually bankrupt you. Seriously. Let's hit that survivor bias trap head on. This book champions companies. It dissects their success stories, but it glosses over the fallen giants that followed identical playbooks. Remember Motorola? A titan, a case study in building enduring greatness? They were in this book. Where are they now? Their once dominant mobile division? Gone. Swallowed by Google, then spit out to Lenovo. Blockbuster? Polaroid? Each was once heralded, then evaporated. The lesson here, success isn't a permanent state. What worked then might just be a landmine today. Don't let survivor bias blind you to the real risks. Now let's get controversial, the cult-like culture. The book subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, advocates for this intense, almost zealous alignment. Everyone eats, sleeps, breathes the company mission, total immersion. In the 90s, maybe that flew. Today, that screams HR nightmare. That invites lawsuits. You want a tight team, not a compound. The downfall of hustle culture taught us this hard truth. Modern employees demand autonomy. They crave purpose, yes, but not at the expense of their entire identity. Forced indoctrination just fuels resentment. It triggers resignations. It shatters morale. Think about WeWork's implosion. That hyper-focused us-against-the-world mentality eventually cracks under its own weight. Here's the nuance, the critical filter you need to apply. Don't trash the whole thing. Separate the timeless principles from the outdated tactics. The principles, rigorous systems, data-driven decisions, disciplined execution, those endure. They're the bedrock. They still propel growth. But the tactics, the 90s era management styles, the work till you drop mentality, the expectation of absolute unquestioning loyalty, that's the part that will tank your modern organization. It clashes with everything Gen Z and millennials value. They're battling inflation. They're building side hustles. They need flexibility, not blind devotion. So how do you create alignment without becoming a corporate commune? You focus on shared vision, not shared dogma. You build trust through transparency, not through pep rallies. You empower, you don't indoctrinate. You give people a reason to care beyond the paycheck by connecting their work to a larger, meaningful impact. But you respect their lives outside the office. That's the modern adjustment. That's how you fortify your business for today's dynamic landscape. If this hits home for you, drop a like. So, is this 30-year-old book a Bible or a doorstop? Here is the final verdict. Buy or burn. You're deep in the grind. Side hustles, inflation. Is this book your unfair advantage or just more noise? The single takeaway? Clock building. Forget chasing a sale. Build the system that delivers sales reliably. You construct the machine. The author drills this relentlessly. It's almost too much, but that focus ingrains the core truth. Automation wins. So, for you, buy or burn. If you're a founder, eyeing an exit, dreaming of a business that runs itself, this book is essential. It blueprints systemization, creating value beyond your direct hours. It transforms you from worker to owner. But if you chase quick cash, scrambling for urgent bills, burn it. This isn't a quick fix. It demands vision, discipline, slow, steady building. No overnight riches here. This forces a choice. Architect, building a scalable system, or hustler, chasing the next sale, trapped on the treadmill. Your answer defines your future. If this hits, like it. Comment, architect for systems, hustler for sales. Want more on systemization? The E-Myth Revisited, link below.